Hi, I'm Chayale.
Hi, I'm Hindi. Welcome to Your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Torah's perspective on relationships.
Welcome, everybody. We have Chayale's here. I'm here, Hindi, Kalmenson, and we have Sara Gita Soble, founder of Relationshift. We are so excited to have you on, Sara Gita. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sara Gita is my personal mentor, and she is my coach and has impacted my life in a tremendous way. And so I think this is the first time that we're introducing her to everybody. So hi, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Hindi. Honored to be here.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So today we're supposed to be talking about feminine desire. I think we should start with talking a little bit more about, like more broadly, about desire in general, talk about where it comes up in Chassidic. Maybe let's start with like defining terms. I always found like that helps because everyone's coming with their preconceived notions of what desire is. Like what's Taava? What's like, I hear desire and I think Taava. Taava means desire in English, technically. So and Taava is usually considered a bad thing. So what is desire the way we're talking about it when we talk about in a relationship? And then if we could bring in those other terms that I think are important, like Ratzon and Taanug, and just, that whole conversation.
Yeah. Such an important discussion. So we want to understand, when we're looking at what desire is, we want to understand first and foremost, what is the experience of desire? Hashem designed us with all different powers, the power of eyesight, the power of hearing, the power of smell, the power of taste, and our personalities. There's all these different parts that go into our being. So desires are interesting because desire is not connected to any one particular body part. Desire is actually called one of our kayches makifim. It's a surrounding or encompassing power, which means that it could be connected to any part of my body. So if eyesight is connected to my eyes, Ratzon, desire, is connected to my eyes. I may want to look at something. I may want to view something. And we're going to get in, as we get into this discussion more, we'll look at Ratzon and Taanug. They're connected to each other, desire and delight. But it's also connected to all the other parts of my body. So, for example, I can enjoy a beautiful view, and I can also enjoy a pedicure. My toes can have enjoyment. There's all different sorts of desire is not limited to one part of my body. It's all encompassing. We also recognize that desire, directs us. For example, if I want to move, that body part will automatically follow my desire, will move. I won't have to direct it any more specifically than just wanting to, and it happens. So before we even get into this discussion, we want to look at this piece that desire is a power that was given to us from Hashem that's all encompassing, and it affects me. It makes a difference on every level of my being.
I guess to continue on that train of thought, first of all, hi everyone. This is so fun. It's so cool to be in a live discussion. And I'm thinking to just to comment on how powerful desire is, really, when we talk about Hashem in wanting to create the world. It all comes down to Hashem's desire for us, that being the whole driving force behind creation. And that's what I'm hearing. And you say, like, the Tzelem Elokim, we're created in Hashem's image. So we mirror that experience as our core drive, our core motivator is desire. And it's so powerful in terms of if we get in touch with it, and if we're going to be intentional about it, it's, we say ein davar omed b'fnei haratzon, nothing stands in the way of will. So thinking of it as a power really gives us the motivation to learn how to channel this power. It could be so constructive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned being intentional about it. So Hindi, in the beginning, you mentioned there's a difference between Ratzon, which is my desire, and Taava, which is also desire, but it's a completely, how would you translate that if you would translate it here?
It's funny because the English word desire has a lot of other connotations. You know what I'm saying? Taava does
Right.
not. Taava has a very specific connotation. And Ratzon, which is interesting, like if you translate it into English, is will, which is, it's actually a much stronger word and directs us a little bit more towards what desire is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be reflective of God's will. It's supposed to be reflective of something proactive, something creative, as opposed to Taava, which has a totally different connotation. It's like losing control or avoidance or like a coping mechanism. You know what I'm saying? Like totally different.
I think, I don't know if this is a good word for it, but I think lust, sometimes I'll hear Taava described as lust, as opposed to, when we're lusting after something, it sort of connotes coming at it with a particular energy that's not positive.
Right. Self-absorbed, self-seeking, pleasure-seeking, that doesn't have a, it's not intentional. It's not creative. It's not uplifting.
Yeah, or growth oriented. It's more like a kind of has like a leech where you're like looking to take something out of something else, as opposed to, like you said, create or give or generate or.
Yeah, that's a great term. So if we would translate for our purposes here, Taava as lust and Ratzon as willful or intentional desire.
Right. Right. And someone's commenting, I don't know if you could see the commentary, but someone's putting in the commentary, I don't know if they want me to say their name, but she writes, I don't think Taava is always a negative thing. Yes, lusts are referred to as Taava, but it says Hashem's desire to create the world and have a relationship with us was Nisava from Taava. That's a very interesting point. Thank you. Right, it came,
Yeah, I
it
was
used
thinking
that
about
word.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually as we were talking here. Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu liyos leidir b'sachtainim. Hashem desired, he wanted that. But for the purposes of, which really brings us to the next part of our conversation, being that we are totally encompassed within Hashem, we're totally absorbed within Hashem, really there's nothing that I can want that's outside of Him. Let's unpack it for a moment. It doesn't mean that I can't want things that are against His will. What it means is that there's a deeper, behind a Taava could be a deeper Ratzon. I may want to take this past week's Parsha, when the Yidden wanted slav, they wanted meat. So Chassidus explains that they had a Taava for meat, but it wasn't the meat that they wanted. What was behind it? They wanted to feel satiated. And beneath it, what they were saying to Hashem was, Hashem, I don't feel that this relationship with you is enough. I don't feel satiated. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel satisfied. If this is all that there is, then that's not what I want. I want more. I want you. So it was expressed negatively in this Taava for meat, but beneath the desire for meat was a deeper desire to be satiated with Hashem's presence and Hashem's, and with Hashem. So behind, we can take, a Taava is a great place to start, because sometimes that's what we're present to.
Right.
And we can take that Taava and unpack it and say, okay, what is the Ratzon behind this Taava? What am I really wanting? What do I feel that this would bring me? And where is that deeper?
I feel like we have to just bring in, just because maybe this is just contextually like what I know, but like that famous sikha, the Tfilas Chana sikha, where the Rebbe, like the whole question is like, why when am I davening? I'm davening for physical things, material things. Like this is supposed to be about connection with Hashem. It should just be praised. And why would I be doing that on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur? And there's a whole sikha, but the end is where the Rebbe says that if you're desiring something, whatever it is in physicality, obviously we're talking about klipas nega, right? So like neutral things that are not sinful or bad, right? But we're talking about in the realm of the neutrality of the world and what could be elevated. There's something in you, deep within you, that is drawing you towards that thing. And maybe there's something there that you can elevate. And so I feel like it's important to bring in this piece of it could be a little bit messy, right? Like technically, Ratzon is supra-rational. It's above rationale. And Taava is below rationale. They're both not in the realm of intellect. They're just not rational. So it's hard to know, like, where is this all coming from? But the idea is that I think, and that's what I want to discuss over here, maybe it could be messy. Like maybe I do want the ice cream. Maybe I do want that dress. Maybe I do want that bag, whatever it is, right? Maybe I want that car. Maybe I want that house, which is like, right? There's like a full range of our deep desires. And maybe there's parts of it that I wanted just for me and for my ego and how it'll make me feel. And like that self-gratifying piece. And maybe there's also a part of it also that is a deeply spiritual piece where I could elevate that home or that bag or that dress or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what brings us back to what Chayale said earlier, is about being intentional about it. Like if I 100%, if I just, in that Chana Sikha, there's the outer desire, but it's up to me to connect to the intention behind that desire. That is exactly where our work lies. Okay, here's what I want. What I want is generally pointing me in the direction that Hashem wants me to go. What we're drawn to. Like it says in Shar B'Tachin, like how do you know what job you're supposed to be working at? Well, what are you drawn to? That's where you want to start from. That's Hashem pointing you. Here's the direction. Here's the area that I want you to elevate, that I want you to work with and refine and bring your touch to. It's connected to your purpose in this world. But then I have to go about and be intentional.
I like the wording of being drawn to something. I think it kind of it could even hold both ends. Like I'm drawn to a certain mission and I'm also drawn to certain temptations. And my soul's journey, even the temptations that we're drawn to, like those very negative things that we feel we keep finding ourselves with, there is the journey will be, even in our process of learning how to manage it, we're gonna bring light into the world by learning how to manage this type of ours, and it's going to connect also to like my deep purpose of what my soul's mission is in this world.
I can share personally. I remember in second grade, first time I went to a library and finding Cinderella. And that's starting a just fascination with relationships and beauty. And when I was a teenager, it was a real struggle. I very deeply wanted to be Chassidic. I wanted to do the right thing. I didn't want to read the wrong things, but I was drawn to it, and I fought it very, very hard, not always successfully. But taking that Taava, or that thing that I was drawn to and that fascinated me so deeply, look what we have now, right? It turns it into a direction of for my life, which is something that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, I want to, can we go back a step? Because I don't know if maybe the people on this group are very advanced because you're members, but this is assuming we know what our taivas and our ritzainais are, and we're like, you know, being intentional about what to go after and what to know and how to manage them. But I think sometimes it's hard to even know, what do I want? And I've definitely spoken to a lot of women who that's a struggle for them to get in touch with what do I want. And I would love for both of you to comment on how to uncover that. But just to start that, I remember, Hindi, a conversation we once had. I don't remember exactly why it came up, but you were telling me, there was this student in a Chabad yeshiva that he was being made fun of by his friends because he was kind of what you're sharing, Sara Gita, about your Cinderella fascination. He was very into wines, and he could tell the difference between this wine and that wine. And it was like, so, his friends were really giving him a hard time about it because, like, it's past, it's so inappropriate. Like, how do you know? So why is your head in the wine? And you're supposed to be, like, it's taivas and it's gashmias. And he was really being given a hard time. You'll tell me if I'm saying this correctly, because I'm repeating what
he was able to tell the difference between years just by tasting it. So, like, he would taste the wine, and he could tell what year it was from. Like, that's
Hindi, you finish.
No. Say the story.
No. So then the mashpia came, and he said that he kind of pivoted the whole conversation, and he said, because he has such a chush, like he has such a talent in discerning, like he has such a sensitized palate, and such a, like acute awareness of differences and nuances and flavors. Those are all qualities that can be directed to Torah and Hashem and mitzvahs and, love of Hashem and understanding the nuances and beauty in Kedusha. So in a certain way, sometimes we have to even just cultivate, not from an animalistic place, but we don't even, our desire hasn't even been cultivated. We're not even in touch with, do I like, do I not like? We're kind of in that more maybe robotic state of, we just do what we're supposed to do, and that's what feels right. And I know for me that I was very much in that space, and I was really kind of shut down, and the idea of like what I wanted seemed foreign, and it was a very hard question to even answer. What do I want? So maybe we can explore that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you want to
go for it, Hindi? I love your story about how discovering how to get in touch with what you want.
Yeah. Thank you. I can very much relate to that, Chayale. Like, I do feel that I think there are a lot of different factors of what happened to me, at least personally, where I completely lost touch with what I wanted. So just to tell you my funny story. So the story was when I finally did ask myself, what do I want, or what would make me happy? What would spark joy? Which I think in ways that terminology, like what would spark joy, is a very high bar to reach, at least for me, felt totally unattainable. So I sat down and like numbered the page 1 through 20, and I couldn't come up with one thing that would make me happy. And I wasn't clinically depressed. So there was something wrong, right? There was a disconnect there. And like finally everyone knows my story, but like when I finally lit upon the one thing that would make me happy, which is funny, and everyone's very unique in what makes them happy. But for me, it was animals. And so I started my journey of discovering what would make me happy, volunteering at a horse stables. But from there flowed. So what happened was I had this breakthrough finally of like, okay, Hindi, you could open yourself up. You have permission to just allow yourself to see that something might be desirable for you. Something might be exciting. Something might bring a gentle smile to your face, right? Spark joy was a little bit of a high bar to reach, but just like what would make your burden feel a little lighter? That's how I teach it to women now. Like, what would make your life slightly easier? And that might be the beginning of your direction towards finding what you want, what you desire, what would make you happy. But the idea is that what was stopping me, I think, is an important thing to talk about. I think personality was stopping me, very black and white personality. Grew up with like very this or that kind of mentality. For me, I'm not blaming my schooling or family in any which way. It's very much a personality thing. And I do think that the Iskafia concept played in, like that story that you were sharing, Chayale, where like it's gross or it's wrong to have a desire or to want something because it's mundane and it's materialistic and it's not spiritual. And why would you even think about that? Ice cream fat, that kind of mentality, which is actually, interestingly enough, entirely the opposite of what the Rebbe's perspective was. The Rebbe spoke so many times about Harchava and how the Jewish people should be experiencing Harchava. And abundance was like the Rebbe's byword. So it's interesting that we adopted much more of a stress on the concept of Iskafia. That being said, I started just shutting down desires. So I'm sure at a certain point when I was a child, I had desires, but reality hit and I had to shut those down because I had to be realistic or grow up or be mature. And so then I would shut down those sparks of thoughts, and they wouldn't even bubble to the surface. So there kind of has to be like a landing space for a desire to come, to like show up. But if there's no space there for it to even happen, or if it keeps on getting shut down in your brain, which is actually a really painful thing, scientifically speaking, for an idea to come up and then it's shut down by the brain because there's actual like neurons sparking with a new idea. And then when, I forgot what it's called, but like, I think I'm forgetting the terminology, but there's a certain hormone that has to shut it down. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. And think that was what was happening for me. And so I got to the point where I shut them down so much that they didn't even come to the surface, which is so hard. And I know relatable. So many women like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what breaks you out of that? I think a lot of curiosity, a lot of exploration. I needed a coach holding space for me to explore.
Permission is also a really good word.
Yeah.
Especially if we know that it's just an exploration, permission to discover what I want without the fear of what's going to come next. My whole life is not going to have to unravel because I wanted something. I'm not letting go of my values. I'm not morphing into a new being by just giving myself permission to answer the question, what do I want? Also, when we're creating
space, to happen.
Right.
Like it gets so scary. Like if I let it, like if I want to be a princess, right? If I want to be Cinderella, but I can't, right? So like there's like that shutdown, but let's just let it land that I want to be Cinderella, And it doesn't mean that I have to become not from anymore. You know what I'm saying? But like there was none of that. It felt very extreme. And the disappointment of it not happening was enough to make me not want to even engage.
Yeah. And there's also, for me, not allowing myself to listen to my desires or have a landing space for them really makes it harder for me to create space for other people. Yes. Because why do you want things outside of, the very black and white framework of what you should and shouldn't be doing? So, get onto that like disciplined, do what you're supposed to do, stop wanting things with my children or my spouse or even friends. Like can bring me to a lot of judgment of other people and them, being more open to their desires.
Yeah. I think why is this so important? Because I think even more than men, it's so important for women to be attuned to their desires. Just, I think, going back to looking at the spheres and the feminine midas that we have on our feminine line is Bina, right, Gvura, Height, and then the ultimate receptor is Malchus. And so, and I think, Sara Gita, you taught this to us, right? Like, so Malchus, do you want to expound on like how Malchus connects to Keser?
Sure. So Malchus and Keser are interchangeable. The Malchus of one world is the Keser of the next world. And Keser is characterized by desire and delight. Ratzon and Taanug. Ratzon and Taanug are connected to each other. When I achieve what I've wanted, I experience delight. True delight is felt when I'm desiring something and I delight in it. So Malchus and Keser are interchangeably connected. Yeah. One can lead straight into the other. So as women, and being that we're connected to Malchus, we're also especially connected to Keser, which is the feminine experience of desire and delight. And those two qualities are very feminine.
Right. Right. So like for anyone who was in my situation, right, having shut down desire, having shut down wants, has a huge impact on who you are as a woman, right? Your femininity, and also your dynamic, which is very painful too. So it's not like she's feeling lost and experiencing the loss of her desires, her wants, tainug, pleasure, like all of that. She's also experiencing loss in her dynamic because the mashpia doesn't really know how to interact with someone who's not a makabel, right? Because if she's no longer feminine, so she doesn't inspire, she doesn't lead with feminine leadership. It's just, she's kind of like nothing.
I think very simply, how do you give something to someone who doesn't want anything?
So frustrating.
It's really hard.
And he doesn't need anything. Like, I'm good, I'm good, I don't need anything.
Doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything. Where does that leave you? If you're here to give something, if you're here to bring somebody something and they're just fine. So there's no way to, there's no desire to honor, and there's no, being to contribute to. Which also sometimes gets us into the reverse. We lost touch with our own desires, so we're trying to then maybe do what our husbands want. That kind of also contributes to like things getting upside down and women getting frustrated. My husband said he doesn't need anything or want anything, or he's not appreciating or wanting what I'm giving him as much as I would like him to.
Can I take you back a bit before we get into that line? Something that you said, Hindi, just brought this up for me, which is, there's knowing what I want, okay, which is separate from running after endless stuff. A lot of times we connect to our wants on a very, like back to what we were talking about before, like the Taava level, where we can endlessly be chasing after stuff to fill what I ultimately want. So if I'm wanting things and I'm finding that I'm wanting, like the next dress, the next pair, and women, you should have beautiful dresses and beautiful shoes and all of that. We should have that. The question is when my desire starts running away with me and it ends up compromising me instead of building me. It's not lending into the values of who we are as Jewish women, who we are as wives, as mothers, as Avdei Hashem. So like there's a nuance there where it switches into, am I running after this stuff? Like, are the things that I'm wanting, are they multiplying in a way that is self-destructing? Or are they fulfilling in a way that's building? And a lot of times running after stuff is actually covering up what I want, what I really want. sometimes a woman who's, I would put it like this. If you would pause her, like in a frenetic space of like, I need to figure out what I want, and this is what I want, and that is what I want, and I have so many wants, and like the lists just are endless. We actually want to pause and be like, wait a second. What do you really want? What is all of this hiding for you?
What's behind that desire?
Yeah.
I actually remember you reminding me, Sara Gita, of I think I might have been in a group setting, and there was maybe someone in the hot seat, and they were really, really expressing a strong, strong, strong desire for, I don't know if the word is wealth, but like more than just financial security, like a type of like income in her family that would like allow an affluent lifestyle, and very much insistent on that is what she needs and wants for her happiness, I guess, stability, security in this world. And you can remind me if I'm remembering correctly, it was the feeling behind it was that money was a sense of security. There was a sense of safety that she was really looking for, that in her, like deeply in her psyche, those two things were completely enmeshed with each other.
Also worth.
Yes. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So I'm like when I'm hearing you speaking about us in that state of like chasing things, I think we're chasing very, very often a sense of value. I'll be somebody if I have this. A sense of, and I guess with that value comes a sense of stability. Like I'm okay if I have this. Whether it's if I have what everybody else has, or it gives me a certain, I fit in, I have a certain worth. There's some sort of, clearly seems there to be some sort of like accepted value system around attaining these things. And in a social media run reality, it's a very, very, very powerful force to reckon with.
Yeah. It sounds like it's kind of bringing us back to this original discussion. How do we navigate, first of all, finding what I want, and, developing what I want, cultivating what I want, and also recognizing whether am I running after what I want, or is there something deeply meaningful and fulfilling in what I want? Like, how do we figure that out?
Right. Like, let's make this practical. Let's figure this out now. This is why we're having the live. Like, I want to know the answer. How do I approach my day? Every decision. So here's the thing. I was actually talking about this with my brother. He's like my Chassidic guru. And he was first of all saying, like, what's your overarching approach to life? Like, let's just, first of all, you have to have enough self-awareness to pause, right? And we're talking about the person who actually genuinely wants to know the answer to this question. So there's like this pausing, there's the introspection, there's honesty, which is huge. And then like, what's my direction? So has my direction been like what you're saying, like the frenetic spending or like running after? And if it is, I think you have your answer. Like something has to change, shift, pause. If it's not like so extreme, so then I think it starts becoming like every single thing that comes up, you don't want to make yourself crazy, but like there is a little bit of like this analysis and this pause to choose, kind of like what I was saying before. Like, let's say I want to buy this dress. Let's say, my daughter was just bas mitzvah and I wanted this specific dress. Okay. We're dress shopping. We're going through, I don't know, thousands to find the right dress. And I found the right dress, but it was the wrong color, and I just got the wrong color because I couldn't get the right color in the end. But then I found it on eBay. Right. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. In my size, what I wanted. And I thought, what is this? Like, I don't usually have such a desire for something, like I really want this. And it wasn't like it was too expensive, or it wasn't like there was something about it. I just wanted it. I was going to go after it. And there had to be like this, just a pause of, okay, Hinty, where is this coming from inside of you? It's not rational. So you can't really justify it or figure this out or there's no way of rationalizing this. This is either like lower than rational or higher than rational. What is it? I felt like it was mixed. It was it was messy. Some of it was, this is just beautiful and I think I'll feel good in it. And some of it was, I would love to wear this to my daughter's bas mitzvah and like experience the glory of her nefesh elokis entering into her body while while wearing this dress, like celebrate her in all of, in this beautiful princess-like experience, whatever it is. I think it was both. And it made, like, I had to pause and stop and then come back at it from that Ratzon perspective, meaning, right? There was just like a little bit of rewind.
I'm waiting for the punchline.
Oh yeah, I got the dress.
Okay. Now I can listen to the rest of your story.
I got the dress. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it from eBay. Okay. It was amazing. It came in exactly my size. It was amazing. Baruch Hashem. But I think there's that pause, and then you could just realign back with Ratzon.
I had a very interesting experience. What I'm hearing in what you're saying is like I was actually feeling jealous of somebody, and I'm like, why am I jealous? And I'm thinking about like certain things about their life, like their the style of their shlichus, and I'm peeling away layers. And by the time I was done, I was like, that's my life. Like it came back to, I'm like, my husband does those things, I do those things. Like it was almost like it caught my attention because I'm drawn to it and I'm in it. It's a very weird experience, like almost like you step out, and if you ask yourself, like, what's my deepest desire? What are my core desires? What's my vision? What do I want for my life? Like, who am I? And then you like go through kind of all the ropes, and you redress yourself back in your life with that choice factor, with that intentional factor. And then it's like, a lot of this is here actually because I did choose it. I just didn't even realize. So like if I bring that, like a woman that I was coaching, she came on not enjoying her job. So we kind of went through this process where she took a break, and then I was like, what do you want? And she's like, I want to be doing, I'm just going to say like hairdressing, because it just, and then she stepped back into the same exact thing that she had been doing when we started speaking, but from a place of choice. I want this. And she felt like it's a whole different experience, because like, this is what I want.
That's so profound. Wow. I love that. I mean, I love what you also shared about like how you were experiencing jealousy, but really when you went internally, you realized this is actually a deep desire of mine. That's so incredible. Wow.
Almost like Hashem connecting you to desire the life that you have. Like the exploration of your jealousy brought about, well, this is what I want. Wait, this is what I have. And then this story you brought of the woman choosing her life as it was, also just so beautiful. And shows us, that Ratzon is not always about something outside of us. Ratzon could be attaching my desire to something that I already have. And that's actually a very important part of Ratzon. Wanting, choosing to want my husband, choosing to want my children, choosing to want the koiches that Hashem has given me, the life that Hashem has given me. There's a lot of desire that I can bring into what I have already.
I love that.
I
feel
think
like
also that's why, go for it.
I was just going to say that the abundance principle, the way you speak about abundance, Sara Gita, is that what you're going to say, Chayale?
I don't
No,
know what you're
something else?
saying yet. So we'll
Oh,
see.
just like meaning when we talk about abundance, one of the first steps of creating abundance is to celebrate the abundance that is already here, right? It's here and we're celebrating what we have. So technically you're acknowledging a desire that came up for you. And you're also now opening up a door and saying, wait, I already have a lot of this. And that actually opens you up to receive, to be open to receive even more of that.
Yeah, very connected to what I was thinking, which is like in Keser, you have Taanug and Ratzon, they're together. And Chassidus talks about which one comes first. Was it the Taanug that came first? Was it the Ratzon came first? And it's an unresolved, not in the sense that it's unresolved, as in it could go either way. Sometimes the Ratzon brings the Taanug, and sometimes the Taanug brings the Ratzon. And I think it's a little bit what we're saying here, which is when I delight in what I have, when I learn to experience what's already in my world, I realize how desirable it is. When I'm celebrating the abundance that's present, when I'm delighting in my husband and my children and my home and my community and my work and my body and my clothing, the clothing that's already in my closet, when I'm bringing delight into those spaces, I'm then able to look at it and see how desirable it is, because I'm delighting in it. So now I want it because look how delightful it is.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. It also answers the unspoken fear of every woman who is afraid, like I was saying earlier, afraid to have a desire, because suddenly the fact that I'm having desire means that I have a lack, and it's so scary to have a lack and it not happening, like what we were talking about before, like I'll never be that Cinderella princess, or I'll never have that house, or I'll never have whatever it is. And instead, what we're saying is when we're opening ourselves up to desire, it's actually an opening towards celebrating what is actually there. And then opening up for more.
Should we summarize, pull it all together?
And maybe take some questions, because I see that people are posting some questions.
Yeah, I saw a question came up a long time ago. Could we I'm just going to go to this question now, because this is about what we're talking about right now. How do you know if you're attaching Ratzon to what you already have? And when it's possibly still coming from that shutdown place where I just go along with whatever is going on without getting in touch with the greater scope of my desire and delight. Because perhaps I don't even speak that language of desire and delight. It's just more of bittul, perhaps misplaced, of I don't have any needs and desires. I should just be happy with whatever I have.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, great question.
Really good question. Take some major self-awareness to know where it's coming from. I also feel like it helps to speak to someone to get some guidance. Like as you're speaking it out, you'll see the messiness, right? And you'll be able to sift through where it's coming from. But I also think independent of that specific situation or that specific desire that's coming up for you or not coming up for you, it's also, again, like, what is the overarching theme of what's happening all around everything else?
Yeah.
Like I remember speaking to a Rav and I called him for like a leniency technically. And his first question to me was, how's everything else happening in your personal life? Like, how's your Avaida? Literally, he was asking, are you dropping things? Are you being, less nias? Are you being less, in all different areas? And I was like, I don't think so. I wasn't. He said, okay, fine. So with this is a leniency. I'm hearing that it's very important for you. So go for it. And I thought that was so brilliant. Like, look at everything. Look at the whole person.
Right. Yeah, I would take a look. Is your life delightful? Are you enjoying your life? Hashem didn't give us our lives so that we should be suffering. If that's not true for you, if that's not your experience, then there's a Ratzon that needs to be tapped into.
meaning there's still more blockages that need to be sifted through to get to let it come through, to let it land.
Yeah. And to discover, like sometimes I don't see the question in front of me, so I don't know if I got all the pieces from, but it sounds like it sounds like the altruistic, idealistic desire to do Hashem's Ratzon, which is, crowds out me having a Ratzon. The problem is that if I don't include my Ratzon, my personality, myself in serving Hashem, if I don't have a self to include in serving Hashem, then I'm missing a very important dimension.
Yeah, I think Ratzon is also specific. And Hashem's, when we talk about Bittul and Hashem and all of these things, Hashem doesn't tell you which clothes to wear, even if we have tznius guidelines, but it doesn't, you can't only shop in these stores and wear these things. Within these guidelines, there's a whole there's a whole personal fashion to explore. You don't have direct rules about how your Shabbos table needs to look. Even the parts of Torah that you're going to learn, there's so much individualizing, there's so much personalizing. So where are your decisions coming from in any given day? There's so much that you have to choose. So how are those decisions being made? They're either being made based on somebody else's set of desires. It's either a mimicked version of somebody else's, or you're doing it. Who's making those decisions, right? Who's shopping, who's cooking, what dinner you're going to make, which recipes you're going to use, where your inspiration comes for all these mitzvahs and what your space looks like. It's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true.
I think there was another question earlier. Hindi, did you see it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Maybe we answered it already, but maybe you can read it.
Okay. What if a husband is very gashmias and the wife is very ruchnias and has a lot of judgment around her husband's Taava for gashmias, and she just wants her husband to give his money to tzedakah and not be building that big fancy house, which she doesn't even want, and she uses Torah in a way to denigrate her husband. Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that example. Having shut down my desires, like Chayale was saying, I didn't really have space for other people's desires either. There was just no landing space for anyone else. Obviously, Hashem's Ratzon is not to judge or denigrate other people. So there's something off, right? For her to not make space for him or what he desires in any which way.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because it feels very righteous. After all, if we have this money, give it all to tzedakah. Don't build a big house. It feels very right. And I think this is it's such an amazing question because it's a lot of what we're talking about. How do I know if what I want and the direction that I'm going in is godly? How do I know if this is an authentic Ratzon or if this is a self-destructive Taava or self-destructive or a misguided Ratzon where there's a deeper Ratzon for me to get in touch with here? So I think the first part that you answered, Hindi, which is if it's in someone else's domain, then my mitzvah here is Hevei Shval Ruach Lifnei Kol Adam, meaning that it's my piece here is respecting and not judging, not denigrating somebody else. I may have a desire to give tzedakah, but that's independent of my husband's desire to build a house. It doesn't have to be instead of. It can be in addition to. I love that you're so generous and want us to live comfortably and abundantly. And you know what? There's a tzedakah I thought I would love to support that as a different landing than, than the judgment of you shouldn't be, and this is where you should be spending. There's more to this question. Let's tease it out a little bit in our last few minutes.
I love what you
I
said.
think also that it does feed into the abundance mindset as well, like feeling like it's either I live in this big fancy house or the people get our tzedakah. And something that I think is amazing about the abundance mindset is that a husband that's reaching for abundance, personally, like you're going to, whatever you have, you can share. So if you're in a big, beautiful house and you're very tzedakah minded, that can be a space of tremendous hachnasas archem. That can be a space to host, like, at the end of the day, as a wife, whatever your husband's creating, you're the akaras habayis. It ends up being ends up directing to you, and then you can direct it. Like, you're reflecting the light of the sun, so you can reflect that in any direction you choose. So that could be, if it's not me or him, it becomes a source, just another resource to share. And I think also we get a little bit confused when we think like Ruchnias is closer to Hashem than Gashmias, which is something that we mentioned about the Sikha of Chana. That Hashem wants us to serve him here in this physical world. So those are all things that are being elevated. A Jewish home, being big and beautiful, is more Gashmias that's internalizing Kedusha. I think maybe to have a bit of an expanded mindset around the opportunity that all of this wealth brings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very important points, and especially being that we're closer to Mashiach. It used to be, the our way of serving Hashem was more like, on a whole, was through more deprivation, really, not serving Hashem with bread and water and the difficulties. But nowadays, being that we're closer to Mashiach is characterized by abundance. So abundance means that part of our serving Hashem, is abundance. Like, if the ideal was not to have abundance, then when Mashiach would come, we would all just be simple and be okay with being simple. Like, wouldn't you think that would be the godly thing to be? But it's not. When Mashiach comes, we are all going to have abundance and extravagance, and that's the mode that we're going to be serving Hashem from. That's the true reflection of the spiritual wealth. Having physical wealth in a perfected world is going to be a reflection of our spiritual wealth. So, this welcoming the abundance into our lives and seeing that as a source of inspiration, a source of even just the physical experience of having abundance expands the mind. Ishana, Kalimnaim, bias, if I don't remember the exact words, but beauty and having beautiful thing actually expands our capacity to joyfully serve Hashem. So if we can look at it in that context, and this woman can embrace what her husband is bringing their family, then perhaps she'll see that more tzedakah and more chesed will come from abundance and coming from trying to shut it down or being embarrassed of having abundance because others may not have as much.
I think, to end off, one thing that I think is very beautiful is that in Ashrei, it says, Paiseach es yadecha umaspia lachol chai Ratzon, that Hashem opens his hand and satiates the desire of every living being. And if you don't have kavana in that pasuk, you have to repeat it So I am always very moved by those words, that Hashem as our ultimate mashpia. And you were saying like that was the Yidden's desire. Hashem, we want to feel satiated, and we can, by being in touch with our desires in an intentional and holy way, we really create that space to be satiated. Hashem, we're being told it as a fact. Hashem is satiating our desires. We can receive that from him.
So powerful.
Really, really beautiful.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. What a profound discussion. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you all who joined us. We really appreciate your questions and your input. And some people are saying thank you, Sara Gita. So thank you both. Let's do this again.
Take care.
We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.